welcome to the news desk with me, Chris Stafford, alongside Nancy Gillen. We are recording on November 14th, a Monday, and this is season 4, episode 43. And as we indicated last week, we're winding down the show, so we've just got 2 more episodes left, Nancy. What a ride it's been, but, you know, all good things come to an end, don't they?
Yeah, but yeah, it has been. I think we've charted a hefty period of women's sport, I think, from 2019 maybe up until now. So yeah, so much happened, the whole pandemic, and yeah, all the challenges that came with that and stuff. So yeah, it's been great.
And as you say, it's been hefty enough because there's really a lot to talk about in women's sports. We say this every week, but the news, it just gets bigger and better, I think, doesn't it? I mean, look at this past a few weeks of the Rugby World Cup, which we're going to lead with this week because it was an epic final when New Zealand beat England 34-31 down there at Eden Park in Auckland, culminating what was an amazing few weeks of rugby union and tremendous support, Nancy, and doing for rugby what the Lionesses have done for football. Yeah,
I mean, it was kind of I think maybe a slight anticlimax for the England team because of obviously losing in the final, but their journey up until that point had been absolutely incredible, and just that unbeaten streak of 30 matches that they'd been on alone was amazing. And yeah, like you said, I think with the Lionesses winning the Euros, just having, you know, so multiple kind of English women's sports teams succeeding and doing really well in tournaments, international tournaments, is incredible. So yeah, I think I mean, we can get into the match, I think, but I'm sure the Red Roses will be heartbroken after losing it, but they could definitely hold their heads high.
I think so too, because there's a lot of wins comes out of a tournament like that, and when women, again, just like the Lionesses, have been such inspiration for young girls, for young women in sport, for women coming back into sport, maybe after having a family or taking a break for whatever reason, and getting young girls inspired by a sport, whether it be football or rugby, whatever it may be. So there's lots of wins, even though that doesn't take away, as you say, for the Red Roses, that sting of losing right in those final seconds. I mean, losing that line out within the last 5 minutes of the game of that final at the weekend. Excruciating for them, but I hope they can take away a lot of positives, because my goodness, what a contribution they've made to women's sports.
Yeah, and yeah, I think that winning streak is the longest winning streak of all rugby, like men and women's. You know, it like it goes past just kind of women's sport, and it's just an incredible achievement just in sport in general. So I think, yeah, when achievements transcend just women's sports, that's always really important. And you know, there's always the Six Nations, and there's the next World Cup 2025 is in England. So I think kind of springboard off this tournament and go into the next edition in front of a home crowd, and kind of just build on from where they left off. I think that's definitely something they can look forward to. Yeah,
most definitely. And of course, they've become tremendous role models for the sport and for young girls. Truly inspirational stuff. And my goodness, credit to New Zealand. Of course, obviously, I think almost everybody in that Eden Park Stadium was supporting New Zealand, of course. A packed crowd, packed stadium, tremendous atmosphere. And the haka to start off with was as intimidating as it could be. And then they rounded up, didn't they, with another haka at the end too. There's only one way to bow out. So tremendous atmosphere that was created there, and a lot of eyes on the sport. And I have to say, I mean, there were so many high points of that tournament when I was watching the highlights, Nancy, but just today there was a pick of the best tries. I think there was 4, tries that they highlighted and looking to name, you know, the best try of the tournament. And for me, not being partisan now, I really am not, but Abby Dow, the Red Roses player, that was an extraordinary try for me. When they run the length of the pitch like that, for me, that's the winner.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think there's any way I not agree. And I think that that try was incredible. I just remember watching the clip of it kind of a couple of hours after the match, and I was like, in isolation, it just looks incredible, really. And it's just the speed with which the ball got from one end of the pitch to the other. It was, we're talking literally seconds. So yeah, no, I agree that for me that should definitely win the award.
And it was all about speed, right? I mean, that's the thing about rugby. If you're going to score a try, you've just got to run faster than the opposition. And my goodness, there were some good tries, and a lot of foot races. But for me, that was the winner. We'll see. I don't know when they're going to name the best try of the tournament, but let us know, Nancy. Post it on social media if you catch it before I do.
Yeah, I will do, for sure.
See who was named. All right, well, at the same time, and again, huge congratulations to New Zealand for putting on a fantastic tournament and really drawing attention to the sport, and to them to winning the tournament in the end. Nothing like a home win. And congratulations to all the other teams, especially England, just 3 points behind. But on we go, as you say. 6 nations to look forward to, and another World Cup coming up before we know it. There'll be another World Cup, but I love the 6 nations, so looking forward to that. Now, in the other format, the Rugby League World Cup semi-finals, they took place today, Nancy, November 14th. As we are recording, you had 2 semi-finals, Australia versus Papua New Guinea and England versus New Zealand again. So how did it all pan out today?
Well, currently at the time of recording, we've only had one ongoing, and then the next one's England, New Zealand in an hour. So people will have to hold tight for next week to see. But the other semi-final between Australia and Papua New Guinea is Australia currently winning 64-0. So I expect that to finish as an Australia win. Quite a dominant victory there, I guess, considering the size of the respective countries and their kind of rugby tradition, or I guess resources. I don't think that's too much of a surprise that Australia are winning, but yeah, it looks like Papua New Guinea are in for quite a hefty defeat there.
Yes, it looks like it. And the other semi-final, England versus New Zealand, well, there's going to be, that traditional rivalry, isn't there, between those two teams? And I would imagine after the Rugby World Cup Final down in New Zealand, where New Zealand, as we said, just beat England, that's going to be in the back of their minds for England and New Zealand to get through to those finals, which take place this Saturday, November 19th. Where's that final being held, Nancy? Because I know those other games have been up north and at different venues.
Yeah, so the final's at Old Trafford, so Manchester United's stadium, which also hosted the opener for the Euros, if you remember. So that's got a really, I think capacity is around 80,000. So a really, really big crowd for that, hopefully. I believe that it's a double header, or is kind of like it's a day of the final. So it'd be the men and the women's final at Old Trafford. So I know in the past sometimes we've seen success with double headers. Sometimes it's a bit of a shame because people only turn up for the men's match, but I'm hoping, especially if England get through and win that semi-final and get through to the final, it should be a really good turnout. So that's next Saturday.
Yeah, whoever gets next Saturday, right? So whoever gets through, whether it's England that have to face Australia or New Zealand have to face Australia, it's going to be traditional rugby league and rugby union rivalry there. That'll be a wonderful final. So we'll have news of that for you next week. And Nancy, I want to move on to some big news in the world of BMXing, because we haven't heard much of that recently, and certainly outside of the Olympics. But Hannah Roberts has just won her 4th title in the 2022 BMX World Championships. She's quite a rock star, isn't she, in the sport?
She is, yeah, and kind of for as long as I think I can remember, she's been winning in BMX. So yeah, she got a score of 87.2 and beating Nikita Dukaros from Switzerland and Iveta Mikolayova from the Czech Republic, who got silver and bronze respectively. 4th world title, that is incredible. And I was, before just before we started recording, I was saying I remember some Olympic drama with Hannah Roberts, and it was that she crashed in the final of the Olympics and got silver. So yeah, that she did suffer some disappointment there. So I imagine this has probably gone some way to amending that to get her fourth world title, because clearly she is the best in the world, really. So yeah, congrats to her for that.
Yeah, fantastic. I did read, though, in that article at USA Cycling that Roberts was on a huge run, landing a double tail whip on the quarter, but crashed trying to throw a front flip that she'd already landed in practice. Do you follow these terms? Do you know what they mean by a double tail whip? Oh, I think I know the double tail whip, but the front flip, what's that?
I don't know if it is just literally a front, like in the air, a front flip, maybe.
Oh, a complete flip.
Yeah, I think so. Oh. I've definitely seen that done on a BMX, and I can definitely understand how you can crash that. So, yeah, I imagine that's what it is.
I'm not going to be practicing that anytime soon.
No.
Again, congratulations to Hannah. What a terrific career she's having. All right, we're going to move on to football now, or soccer, just for a change, because a few things happened since last week. We talked about the internationals. We're on an international break, and we had 2 games for England and 2 for the USA. We completed our 2, both friendlies against Germany. And as you know, Nancy, we lost 2-1 last Thursday at the DRV PNK Stadium in Fort Lauderdale. And that was in front of a crowd of 16,971. But we got even better yesterday evening at the Red Bull Arena in Harrison, New Jersey. There was 26,000 there, seeing us get sweet revenge when we beat Germany 2-1. So 2-1 to Germany last Thursday, and then 2-1 to us last night. And it was a turnaround that we absolutely needed, Nancy, because that otherwise would have meant 4 straight defeats for the USWNT, which unheard of in recent times. It's been a long time since that happened, that we lost 4 straight games. We really, really needed to win this, and it turned around in the second half, as often games do, don't they? And finally, you could see the old spark of those, players like Mal Pugh and Sophia Smith, who both scored last night in New Jersey, and they just threaded the needle through the German defence, and it became a different game.
Yeah, I mean, I watched those. I watched most of the match before I had to go to sleep, and yeah, it was kind of a tale of 2 halves. I do think quite significant was Lena Oberdorf going off for injury, because that seemed to leave the gap in midfield, which the US then seemed to be able to exploit and get those goals. But yeah, they were really, really well taken, and definitely there's a lot of young, exciting players in the US team. I think Mal Pugh and Sophia Smith being 2 of them. So yeah, I think it's definitely been a tricky time for the US, but then there were glimpses of promise in that match that I think can make fans hopeful.
I think you're absolutely right, because we lost that spark. We lost that synergy with the game, with the players, knitting together the veterans and the new talent, and so many talented players. So, who do you leave out? How many veterans do you leave out? How many do we still need? Right? And how many young players come on, and for how long? Do they do the full 90, or, who do you substitute? It's a tricky situation, but and I also just think that there's, we'd left that hole in the middle. I've talked about that before, the hole in the middle, but for some reason, something clicked last night in the second half, and they came back to their old form. And of course, I think everybody in the stadium who was supporting the US wanted to see Alex Morgan score. We tried to feed her, and she was going back into the midfield, quite way back to make contact with the ball. And I think that was indicative, really, of what's been happening with our team, that she's had to go so far back. All our forwards had. But anyway, kudos to Alex, because she achieved her 200th cap for the US. Unfortunately, she did not score, but and she came off. She was substituted later on in the second half. But that's it. for the US until January now. We go down to New Zealand and play against New Zealand for a couple of World Cup eye-openers. So, preparation for the World Cup, we go down in January for that. But for now, that's the end of our season. That's the end of our internationals, Nancy. But you're still halfway through your internationals. You beat Japan 4-0, and you're going to face Norway tomorrow on the 15th.
Yeah, so, quite an impressive win against Japan. 4-0, Rachel Daly scoring in the first half to continue her really good season so far. And then Chloe Kelly, Ella Toon, and a goal for Jess Park on her England debut, which I was really happy about because she's a really exciting young player. Japan are a good team. They've always kind of been up there at, the Olympics and the World Cup, and I haven't really seen them play that much recently, so I didn't quite know where they were at. But I was surprised by that 4-0 scoreline because England just keep going on. And we've got Norway tomorrow. So of course, the last time we played Norway, we beat them 8-0 at the Euros, and that was another really shock scoreline. So I'm not expecting a repeat of that because I think that was a bit, out of the blue and probably won't ever happen again. But judging by the way we're going at the moment and, how Serena's got the team playing, I'm quite confident of a win there. I think especially as well, Norway, their manager after the Euros went, so they've kind of got a new regime in place, and that always takes a bit of time to accustom to and kind of get used to a new style of playing and new manager. So, I think it's probably quite a good time to play them. So I'm expecting another win there. But at the same time, I'd like to see Serena just shake up the team a bit more, try some more young players, because at the end of the day, it is a friendly. So it's a good opportunity for her to test out some players and see where they're at before we head into 2023.
Yeah, I should mention, though, that you've had some injuries and withdrawals. Lucy Bronze, Beth Mead out for various reasons. What's the update on who's available, Nancy? Is there anybody else out of the given squad that was named? Because last week we had it was Lauren Hemp and Jordan Nobbs withdrawing, and then we've had Lucy and Beth Mead go now. So that is maybe not Jordan Nobbs as such, but quite a few of the kind of main squad members. But apart from that, the squad is more or less the same. I think it does. Obviously it's not great when players are injured, and I hope everyone is fine and well, but it does give opportunity, I suppose, for other players to come through. So, the starting lineup it will be quite a different one to, the team that Serena had at the Euros, but I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. No. And I think Lucy was tested positive to COVID. It wasn't an injury, was it? It was just I think it was COVID, and then it was a minor injury because I think she stayed with the camp because to see if she would test positive, but then there was a minor injury and she then just went home. And she just went back to her club, right? Barcelona.
Yeah, went back to Barcelona. Yeah. So, yeah. Okay.
And I did read that Serena was not expecting that kind of scoreline again, as you say, that a big marginal win. She said to that that Norway had a bad day and they had played particularly well. So, we'll see where we finish up tomorrow. And we should mention, though, that 4-0 win against Japan. Japan are not too shabby themselves. They're previous World Cup winners, aren't they?
Yeah, they are, a kind of traditional powerhouse in women's football, I'd say. It is very impressive. And I mean, I remember 2015 World Cup, England losing to Japan in the semi-finals, and you look to where we're at now and beating them 4-0, and it's a real kind of sign of improvement over that period.
And a lot of their players play overseas, don't they? Play here in the US, in the NWSL, and also in the UK. Arsenal have got Mana Iwabuchi, who's a really talented player, and there's Japanese players at City and all around the world. So they're definitely a really good team. Yeah. All right. Well, we'll bring you our thoughts on, or certainly Nancy will have some thoughts to share on the England-Norway game that takes place tomorrow. That'll be on next week's show. We have one other football story, Nancy, that you found on the of Toni Duggan, the England footballer.
Yeah, this was just an interview with Duggan from BBC Sport. So she announced, I think it was last month, that she was pregnant. And she's kind of gone quite in depth in this interview about the challenges of being a player that's pregnant. I don't think she has an intention of retiring afterwards, after she has a child. I think she fully intends to come back. So yeah, she's kind of just, she's now more than 4 months into her pregnancy, and I believe is doing light training, but nothing full on. And yeah, she's kind of just spoken about how funny it was, I suppose, initially hiding it from the team, having to tell the coach of Everton, she plays for Everton, telling the coach before telling her mum, which is obviously probably not the way you normally do things. But as a professional footballer, that's kind of what you have to, obviously you have to set out a plan for playing and so on. And then, the interview goes quite in depth into just, being a mother and being a footballer, because Duggan isn't the first, but, there aren't too many people that have done it. I think, they've listed as examples Katie Chapman, Melanie Leopold's the Chelsea player who has recently had her baby, or is about to have a baby, I think, around this time. Obviously in the US, Alex Morgan, Crystal Dunn, but it's still quite rare. So I'd recommend just having a read of the interview, because it's kind of an insight that we don't really get in women's football, because it is still relatively rare.
And Julie Ertz, the other US player, she paused to have a baby too. Yeah, and look at Crystal Dunn, back on the team, back on the national squad, not just her club, but in no time at all. My goodness, she really worked at it to regain her fitness, so it is very doable. But before we close on football, I just wanted to mention although it's been an international break, the WSL will be back next week. You've got several games next weekend, and your team Arsenal are playing Man United. Yeah, it should be a really good weekend, particularly because, Arsenal Man U is at the Emirates, and I think they've sold about 35,000 tickets, so it won't be quite as much as was at the Arsenal Spurs game in September, but still a really, really good crowd for that. So I will be there. And then also Chelsea Tottenham as well on the Sunday. That's at Stamford Bridge, and they announced today that they've sold Stamford Bridge out. So that's going to be around 40,000 people. Yeah, really incredible. So I'm hoping, I've asked for a press pass for that. So I'm hoping to be there with press as well. But I think they're probably the two of the biggest games. I think particularly Arsenal Man U, because I think Man U might pose the biggest challenge to Arsenal this season so far, whether they can continue their unbeaten run. And Man U having lost to Chelsea before the international break, and kind of their title race has gone a bit off course. I'm sure they'll be keen to get back on track with a win against Arsenal. So I think that's definitely the one to look out for, if any. Okay. All right. Well, you'll have to let us know what you think next week, but enjoy that game. It's at the big stadium this Saturday, 12:30 kickoff if you're in England. All right, we're going to move on to British athletics now. We're going to stay in Birmingham, no less, which was the centre, of course, of the Commonwealth Games this past year. And they're capitalising on their facilities there, Nancy. For British athletics, it's going to be a tremendous legacy. Yeah,
so they've announced two big events for next February. So the UK Athletics Indoor Championships will be taking place there on the 18th and 19th of February. And then the following weekend as well will be the World Indoor Tour Final on the 25th of February. So that's going to be the last event in the series of indoor tour events. They've all got some. Both events have, there's something at stake there. So at the UK Athletics Indoor Championships, it's going to be national titles, and then places on the Great Britain and Northern Ireland team ahead of the European Athletics Indoor Championships in Istanbul, which is in March. and then the indoor tour final. Athletes will be able to secure wildcards for the World Athletics Indoor Championships, which is in Scotland in 2024. So yeah, some interesting events happening there. And like you said, after Birmingham hosted the Commonwealth Games, it's obviously becoming a real hub for sporting events.
Yeah, it certainly is. And it's great to have these venues fully utilised too, which doesn't always happen after an Olympic Games, I have to say, but that's another conversation. All right, we've got one piece of news about tennis and the Billie Jean King Cup, Nancy, that happened this past week.
Yeah, so that has been happening over, last week, the tournament up in Glasgow. Unfortunately for the host nation, Britain, I think they did get out. They won that opening game against, I've forgotten who it is. I think was it Kazakhstan? I think, or Spain. No, sorry. They won that opening match against Spain, which is the first time they've actually done that in quite a few years. But then lost to Australia. So the final took place between Switzerland and Australia. It was a pretty comprehensive victory for Switzerland, really, to the point that there only 2 matches were played. So Jill Teichmann beat Storm Sanders 6-3, 4-6, 6-3. And then Belinda Bencic, who is the Olympic champion, reigning Olympic champion, then beat I always struggle with her name.
Isla Tomljanovic. Tomljanovic. Yeah,
Tomljanovic.
Mm-hmm.
She beat her 6-2, 6-1. So it was all over quite quickly, it seemed like. But yeah, it was a very strong Swiss team there. I believe they'd finished as runners up quite a few times and then have finally won. So that must be quite satisfying. But yeah, it's that kind of came and went, that event, and with that and the WTA finals over, that's technically officially the end of the tennis season now until we start again with the Australian Open.
Yeah, things are wrapping up, aren't they? They're wrapping up here for football and wrapping up for tennis. But there is one sport, Nancy, which is just dying to get underway, and that is the Skiing World Cup season. The White Circus should have started, but didn't because there was no snow in Austria for the Solden season opener. And so they are planning to start in Levi in Finland with the slalom. That's this weekend, the 19th and 20th of November. And then they come over here to Killington in Vermont for the 26th and the 27th for a giant slalom before they head up to Lake Louise in Canada the following weekend, where they get their first downhill run of the season, which is always exciting. It's my favorite of all of the codes. And there's the Super G as well. So looking forward to that. But finally, that season should get underway this weekend in Levi in Finland. And that is about it for this week, I think, Nancy, unless you've got something up your sleeve that you haven't told me about.
No, that's it. Yeah, and another really amazing range of sport happening there. And yeah, we've got rugby league and football to look forward to. For me, personally, I'm sure you're very excited for skiing to finally get underway.
Yes, I am. Of course, no football to watch. We have to grab what we can of what's happening in Europe now and the rest of the world. And what else are you following, though, apart from football and rugby league? Well, that will be over, of course, next weekend, and we'll be able to report on that the following week. Is there anything else that you're focusing on, Nancy?
Yeah, well, on Wednesday there's a little award ceremony here. It's like BT Sport Action Woman Award, so it's like the best, basically the best sportswoman of the year. So yeah, that would be on Wednesday. I'm going to that myself, actually. So I went last year as well, and it was quite a nice celebration of sportswomen in the UK.
Does that mean to say you have to get your frock out?
Yeah, well, I haven't. You know what? I'm always really underprepared with these things, and I haven't yet decided what I'm going to wear. But yeah, it is smart. So yeah, the athletes that are up for that include Beth Mead, Molly McCann, the UFC fighter, Andrea Spendolini-Serie, the diver, Hannah Cockcroft, the wheelchair racer, Eilish McLaughlin, and Eve Muirhead, the Winter Olympian. So it's a really good rate. I like that they've picked a really good range of female athletes there, not just concentrating on, the kind of more popular sports, I guess,
right,
in terms of, like football and stuff. So, yeah, that should be really fun. So I'll, let you know how that goes and who wins that.
Yeah, great. We've got to keep an eye on the try winner for the Rugby World Cup as well. Find out who won that. And then you've got, of course, the BBC Sports Personality of the Year, one of always my favourite events on TV. That comes up in the beginning of December. And that does have a team nomination, of course. There's lots more nominations than the British Telecom one, the BT one. And so in terms of the team, I really can't see anybody getting past the Lionesses. I mean, even if the Red Roses had won the Rugby World Cup, that would have been hard to choose of the two teams who was worthy. There might have been a draw there. But anyway, that's hypothetical. I can't see anybody getting past the Lionesses for the team accolade. Can you? No.
And like you said, I think it would have been a different story if England had also won the Rugby World Cup, especially given the streak they went on. But yeah, given that they didn't, I think it is really impossible to not go past, the women, the Lionesses. I think judging by its time in December, it might be possible if the men do well in the Football World Cup, they might be able to sneak in, but they'd have to win it, I think, for that to happen. And I still think the women did it first in terms of winning the Euros and kind of ending the wait for a title in football. So yeah, for me it surely has to be the Lionesses.
I would hope so. Oh, by the way, any news of their captain Leah Williamson and her foot injury?
I think she is meant to be back within the month, maybe as in within the next 4 weeks rather than within November. So,
okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that just about wraps it up for this week. Our penultimate show here of the news desk with me, Chris Stafford, and Nancy Gillen. We've brought you lots and lots of news over the last 4 years from around the world of women's sports. But we do have one more show to go, one more episode, and that's going to be next week. We will be recording on the Monday, won't we? Which is the 20th, 21st? What's that, 21st?
It's the 21st, yeah.
Okay. That will
21st of November.
Yeah, that will be our last show, and we'll be wrapping up before the Thanksgiving holiday here in the US. So I do hope you'll join us for that. And don't forget, if you want to listen to any back episodes of any of the shows that we've recorded here, and there are literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of interviews with athletes from just about every sport over the years. So there's lots more to listen to at WiSP Sports on your podcast app. So Nancy, that wraps it up for this week then. You're going out on the town, aren't you now?
Yeah, I'm going to see a play about women's football. staying incredibly on brand. So yeah.
Yes, I love your consistency. Even if you go to see a play, it's going to be about women's football.
It's got to still be about sport.
I love it. All right, Nancy. Well, thank you so much as always. See you back here this time next week for our last show. Until then, thank you everybody for listening and enjoy your sport.